Yesterday, Ukraine carried out such an interesting attack on Russia that it is said they almost destroyed 30% of Russia's air power. An article was published in the Washington Post. It says that Russia experienced its own Pearl Harbor yesterday. And what's interesting is that today, Russian and Ukrainian delegates will hold a peace or ceasefire negotiation in Turkey under the observation of the United States. They started arriving today. It will begin at 1 o'clock at the Chiran Palace. The most remarkable aspect of yesterday's action is that they carried it out with drones, but they did it from 5,000 kilometers away. In other words, when you look at it from the border, they hit the large aircraft at the military base 5,000 kilometers from the Ukrainian border with drones. So how did they do this? Arda, if you like, let's go over this together a bit. Because it's both an intelligence success. We could even call it the biggest Trojan horse operation of recent years. It's also a military success. Because as far as we understand, the Russians were also preparing for a major air operation. And of course, it's a huge morale boost for Ukraine as well. How did they pull it off? The details have come out.
Details are still coming in. They can't be fully verified yet. But of course, we can also discuss based on some very clear footage. What they've actually done is this. For the past 1.5 years, the Ukrainian Special Services SDU have been preparing for this, Mr. CÜNEYT. And as you said, the timing is also very good because this coincides with the period when Russia was gathering its aircraft at the Olenia Air Base located in the northwest on the Finnish border. One of Russia's most trusted and well-protected airbase and was preparing for an attack to deliver a serious blow to Ukraine right before the peace talks. What are they doing? They are somehow getting UAVs into Russian territory. How are they getting them in? By trucks. They place containers inside the trucks, and inside these containers, they put the drones. And Russian drivers actually bring these trucks into Russian territory, making it look like they are part of another operation, and drive these trucks for hundreds of kilometers to these bases. One of them is all the way in the east at the Irkutsk base in Siberia. And then as soon as these trucks get physically very close to these bases, the roofs of the trucks open, the containers open. They do this remotely as well. Again, using the drone system, and these drones take off. They literally hit these planes one by one physically. Among them are A-50 early warning aircraft and reconnaissance planes, which have played a very significant role in Russia's attacks on Ukraine for the past 3 years. And there are Tu-22 T-5 and Tu-22 M3 bomber aircraft as well. In fact, they directly target these planes because these planes have caused the Ukrainians a lot of pain for 3 years and they simply couldn't stop them in any way. So what did they do? They infiltrated, they snuck in. With this very interesting truck tactic, they literally attacked bases that are kilometers away with drones. And as you said, they destroyed about 30% of Russian aviation, of strategic aviation. It's being said that Russia may have suffered a loss close to $7 billion. And most importantly, these planes, each worth $350 million, prepared and protected for years, stationed in places in Russia's far east and far north where no one would ever expect an attack, are being destroyed one by one with drones.
Now we see those drones. The backs of these trucks are covered. They're closed off. So the trucks, in fact, what are they really doing? They load them directly into these large containers you see here. And the containers are brought to a location close to the air bases, and then the drivers remotely drop them off and leave. Then the tops of the containers open automatically, and the drones take off from there. There's even a video where a man with his head wrapped in a bandage is shown from behind. It takes off from there and flies away. For example, bring up the footage of those planes being hit from earlier. It hits heavy, that is large aircraft. Until now, we always saw these drones hitting soldiers, small targets. But that's not it. There's a much clearer daytime shot where it comes straight at the planes one after another. Look, some of these are heavy bombers, and there were even radar planes. Of course, the Russians are in a state of shock because this isn't happening somewhere near the Ukrainian border. One of them is 2,500 kilometers inside the country, in Siberia. And the other one is all the way on the other side of Russia. I mean, I don't think they were expecting anything like this at all. Now, of course, people are talking about how the Russians will respond. And on that note, earlier this weekend, Putin made various statements. If these Germans use German missiles, we Ukrainians will accept this as the Germans attacking us. And, well, they know our strength. I mean, he's kind of referring to their nuclear power. In fact, images of several nuclear missiles were released as if they had been deployed. Look at this. This is truly the biggest surprise attack since Pearl Harbor. And even Pearl Harbor was somewhat telegraphed. People were expecting such an attack, wondering if it would happen or not. And this is also very cunning. You load the containers onto trucks, put drones inside them, then send them all the way to Siberia or to the other side. So we're actually facing a very important situation regarding how war technology and the mentality of warfare are changing. Now, for example, we're talking about artificial intelligence. We'll talk about it again in the coming minutes. Look, do you see how the drone takes off? It takes off from there, goes out one by one, and they strike one after another. I mean, they don't launch them all at once. Now we're talking about artificial intelligence. We say artificial intelligence would be like this, would be like that. We talk about humanoid robots, but there's a dark area that we don't talk about. And that's how artificial intelligence is used in wars. Now, we're not quite at the artificial intelligence stage here yet. For example, with this attack, I'm sure many Air Force officers watching us right now are saying this. They must be thinking, one day, this could happen to us too. How do we take precautions? Because up until now, for example, when you go to certain critical places, I don't know, like landing at Bodrum Airport, for example, there are bunkers there, right, with concrete on top. The fighter jets are kept inside them. Why is that? So that if there's ever a conflict, the enemy can't just come and pick them off like birds. But not all aircraft systems are protected like this around the world. For example, after this, a few videos were released. All the planes are left out in the open. So how are they going to be protected now? For instance, these guys are using radar jammers, signal jammers right now in Ukraine. Now they're flying them with wires. Did you know that? I mean, there are wires stretching for kilometers, and the entire front line is covered with these wires. Since they don't want the signal to be jammed, just think about it in one hand. You're destroying $1 billion, $350 million aircraft with something that costs just $350. There's a very interesting anecdote about artificial intelligence related to this. I don't know how true it is, but during a military exercise, there are blue forces and red forces. The commander gives an order. He tells the blue forces to go and strike the command center of the red forces inside that town. The artificial intelligence devises a strategy accordingly, launches the aircraft, and completely levels the entire town. He says, no, don't harm civilians, just hit that specific target. The artificial intelligence says, wait a minute. The initial target I was given was this. This was the order I was first given. Was that order valid? You know, it asks, it says, is the first order still valid? Yes, it's valid, they say. It says, you will destroy that place. Then it comes and shoots the officer who gave this order because it says, this person is preventing me from carrying out what I was supposed to do. So this one should be eliminated as well. In other words, we don't know where war technology is heading or how it will be, but the concept of war is changing now. When we look at this, the clearest thing we see is that there is a different world in war. And that's what scares me the most. That day, we were sitting in San Francisco, and a robot came over. It came and shook my hand. You know, I even posted it on Instagram. We shook hands with the robot so we can show it to our kids, like, look, son, like, Mavi, look, this is how we met our first robot. I'm looking at the robot, and everyone else is looking at it thinking how cute it is. But I looked at it differently, of course, since we come from the East. I thought, what if one day a robot like this stands before us as an enemy? What will we do? So what the hell are we going to do? And honestly, right now, we really don't know where this whole artificial intelligence thing is headed. Let's see what the results will be. So just how far will we truly go in the end? We'll all experience and witness this journey together as one.
In short, it's impressive, Mr. CUNEYT. As you said, 100 years ago, it would have been impossible for any army to reach Russia's most protected areas in Siberia or the Finnish border or the North Sea, whether by ship or by land, without intelligence. That's exactly why they've openly stationed aircraft in these places. But what happens now is that if the enemy can come and strike you with these drones at your most sensitive, most protected spot so quickly and at such a low cost, as you said, the course of war and even all the current balances of military power we know will actually force every country to reassess its own capabilities. And as you mentioned, go on alert, this attack has caused exactly that. Pearl Harbor was the event that showed that submarines, warships, and navies no longer held the same importance as before. Because what had happened? The Japanese, with their kamikaze planes, managed to destroy almost half of the American fleet. And in fact, the Second World War had already turned into an air war. This is why it is a day that must be paid close attention to, as it marks the end of the era of air warfare, or at least its loss of former significance, and demonstrates the new role of drones and perhaps, in the future, artificial intelligence in warfare.
Of course, on the other hand, we also see just how valuable and important our UAV power is. This isn't really talked about much in Turkey, because the person behind this is Erdogan's son-in-law. It's usually kept in the background. But for example, I read about it in the foreign press, both in the recapture of Karabakh and in Libya, for instance. There was a long period of drone warfare in Libya. This was especially a war where Turkish and Egyptian drones fought against each other. This attack has very clearly demonstrated just how important drone technology, in other words, armed UAVs, unmanned armed aerial vehicles, really are. And for example, in recent days, there was an undeclared air war between India and Pakistan. There too, the Indian defense minister came out and said, our planes have been shot down. The Pakistani Ministry of Defense claimed to have shot down quite a few of their planes, or so it was said. How many? They asked. He didn't say, but from what we understand, quite a few planes were shot down. It was the biggest air battle in recent years. Of course, now the biggest question is, what will Russia's response be? They will respond, and maybe these are the last attacks before peace. everyone wants to sit at the table strong and confident with high morale. Because, for example, the timing of yesterday's attack was no coincidence, especially before today's meeting. They keep saying that when they sit at the table, it's like, we haven't been defeated. Look, we can come and hit you right in your heart, whether it's in Siberia or wherever else. And they claim to have destroyed $7 billion worth of aircraft. So Ukraine is sitting at the table with a stronger hand.
Yes.
Let's hope this situation doesn't escalate and remains under control. Let's hope at this particular moment in time, it doesn't spill over or escalate into something else, which could potentially lead to further complications.